morning, grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender HD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, and it's Wednesday, June 28th, and it's still a bunch of baseball. Can the chalk stop hitting? I have no idea. Let's see. Maybe it'll happen today. All right, we'll have all your regular MLB content, Grinders Live, Crunch Time, later today. Tomorrow there's no show. It's being semi-preempted. We're gonna have a Grinders Live for the early slate. The early slate, I think tomorrow is the main slate, but I think that's a 2:00 Eastern slate. So we're doing Grinders Live at 12:30 Eastern, headed right into Crunch Time, and that'll be with me and Dean. So no show at 11 also. So it's like one of those things. Anytime that I'm on the early Grinders Live, typically we do Grinders Live instead of the pregame show. So just a note there, if you don't see the thumbnail, then Friday, take a first look at the MMA slate for this coming weekend. I think only 12 fights. So not the greatest of slates, but I think there could be some advantages there. I think so certain fighters may be a little bit overowned for their expectation. We'll take a look at that on Friday. Give me those thumbs ups. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. The thummy thumbs, the subscribey scribes, the notification, the bells, the belly bells. You want to hit the belly bells to know when we go live? Do that. Helps us out with this free content, unstructured learning here in the morning. If you want a more structured education on DFS strategies, game theory, go to theoryofdfs.com. Get the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports for advanced players, as well as the Fundamentals Masterclass, 15-hour audio masterclass. The first one, then we got the 10-chapter course with Excel tools, and the second one, theoryofdfs.com. Good morning to the chat, people. The early birds, some regulars here. Good morning. Jay Simmons, Wataz, Bart B, Don Montgomery, D-Fick. Daniel Hutchings is here. He could probably chime in on the conversation we're going to have today. Conversation today stems from a Twitter threads, Twitter conversations, whatever. It's very rare you get actual Twitter conversations. Typically, it's someone posts a tweet and then it's 14 people saying you're an idiot, right? And then or arguing something that you're not arguing, whatever. It kind of got into that a little bit. But Brian Hooper yesterday posted, if you don't know Brian Hooper, Brick75, posted, MLB DFS is getting pretty sharp. Most nights, there are only a handful of the 150 maxers that are plus EV. Last night, there were only 10. Some nights, there are even less. And this is according to, obviously, there's a post-content results sim that on a competing site that will show a lot of that based on their projections. Basically, what Brian's saying is that if you're a 150 maxer, there's 50 of them on a given night, like. From a simulated ROI perspective, like 80% of them actually end up coming in negative ROI. And the basis of his thoughts is that the field is getting sharper. And my reply back to that was, if those 150 maxers trim down their lineups in half or even more, wouldn't the number of plus EV ones increase? I mean, the amount of users increase? Because from what I gather, and I've been saying this for quite a while, and Brian has also, if you listen to lulls, from what I could gather, there's an inflection point of diminishing returns on entries that's more affected by the proportion of significantly minus EV lineups entered by the opponents or the field than the strength of your own. Meaning, I've been saying this for a while, that you should be judging contests more by how many really bad lineups there are, right? Not how great are your lineups, or what are your lineups EV versus one of the top players EV. That it's going to be much more driven by the bottom 25% of the field or more so than the top 25% of the field. But yeah, obviously the games are getting tougher, right? Daniel says, I usually see more plus EV 150 maxers than that in his sims. So one of us is wrong. Okay, it's possible. But the point that I was making is that, and there was another argument here. There's basically two debates being had with this question that I think we were going back and forth because I know Shady Advice chimed in and the check, and I saw, Drewby was in there and Nelson Adcock, and so the people I respect, people that understand math and statistics or whatever. The points that I'm making is that if we take the extremes, okay, so let's take a 10-man contest. Okay, let's just say it's a 10-man contest. Don't worry, don't even worry about the rake at this point, right? No rake. 10-man contest, top 3 pay. 50%, 30%, 20%, just as an example. Let's say 7 people have entered that. So like 7, you see 7 out of 10. And all 7 of those lineups are like garbage garbage. Like they're reserved entries with injured players, right? They're automatically going to get 0 points. So you already see there's 7 lineups in there that are going to get 0 points. You have the option to enter as many lineups as you want, right? Obviously, there's only 3 spots left. What would be the optimal amount of lineups that you play? Well, in that case, it seems pretty simple that you play 3 lineups, right? Top 3 pay, right? Top 3 pay. And the other 7 opponents are guaranteed to get a 0. So every lineup that you enter, when you enter the first lineup, if you just entered one lineup and no one else entered any other lineup, so now there's 8 out of 10 and it fills with some overlay, right? All those 0 lineups will split second and third place, and you will virtually be guaranteed, right? As long as you score a point. You're guaranteed at first place, right? So the EV of that first lineup, if you just entered one lineup, would be 5x, right? It pays out basically 5x, 3x, 2x your money. It's a 10-man contest, 50%, 30%, 20%. So your first lineup, it's EV, you're going to get 50% of the prize pool. If you enter the second lineup, your second lineup can't win first place because your second lineup is competing against your other lineup. Now it's guaranteed to at least get second place. One of your lineups is guaranteed first, and the other lineup is guaranteed second because of the 7 lineups in there that are just 0 points. So the first lineup has a certain EV. The second lineup has to have a lower EV because it is competing against your first lineup. Now, as a whole, your 2 lineups together, your portfolio is still plus EV, but your portfolio is a lower ROI than the portfolio of 1, right? If you had one lineup, you still have a portfolio, right? It's still just one lineup. Then the 2 lineups that are in there, your ROI is going to go down, right? And because you can't win first place twice. Let's add that third lineup in there, right? Because now there's 3. You got 3 spots. You could enter 3 lineups if you want. 7 lineups dead, 0 points. That third lineup can't possibly win first or second if the other 2 win first and second. That lineup, at most, could double their money. Right. Now, you're not sure which lineup is which. Like, this is the second point of this whole argument. In a vacuum, the EV of each of these 3 lineups are equal to each other. Let's just say. They're all strong lineups. Right? Because you only have to just beat 7 people that have 0s. So they're all equivalent enough to each other. You don't know which one's going to come in first. You don't know which one's going to come in second. You don't know which one's going to come in third. But because there's 7 dead lineups, it doesn't matter to you. Basically, you're going to be entering, $3 to be guaranteed to win $10. Right? So let's say it's $1 entry and it pay obviously a $10 prize pool. So if it's $1 entry and you just enter one lineup, you're guaranteed to win first place. So one lineup, $1 gives you $5. If you enter 2 entries, that's $2 gives you $8. $3 gives you $10. Now, in proportion, the highest ROI is just entering one lineup, but the most raw money is entering 3 lineups because all 3 are guaranteed to make a profit. It's just that your second and third lineups will make less profit than your first lineup, than your theoretical first lineup. So you understand that. You understand if 7 people put in 0s. Now let's change it. That it's not 7 people putting in 0s. Let's say it's 6 people putting in 0s. and one person that's putting in a lineup very, very similar to yours. Equivalent EV, equivalent projection, ownership, whatever you want to put into it. That individually, we ran this lineup against all the other lineups. Oh, it would be about equal to any of the 3 lineups that you could have put in. Okay? So now you have 6 dead lineups in there, right? So if you put in your one lineup, you're guaranteed second place, right? Assuming no one else enters the contest, right? Because maybe you don't beat that one opponent lineup that actually is decent. You come in second, right? You can come in third, right? Well, you can't come in third if it's just one entry. Now, let's say you enter 2 lineups. You're guaranteed to come in at least second and third. Guaranteed, right? Because it's 6 dead lineups, 1 fine lineup. It's only 9 lineups in there out of the 10 that could be in there. You're guaranteed to come in at least second and third. If you play 3 lineups, you're guaranteed that 2 of the 3 lineups will come in first, second, or third. One of your lineups will not cash. I mean, you could. I mean, you could have first, second, third, and the other guy has the 4th place lineup. You're not guaranteed. Like one of these lineups could actually miss the pay line at this point. If you only put in 2, you're guaranteed to get at least second and third. If you put in 1, you're guaranteed to get at least second. 3 lineups, you're guaranteed 2 of them will come in first, second, or third, at least. Guaranteed, at minimum. Well, look at the ROI of that situation. If you played one lineup, $1, what is your minimum payout? Your minimum payout is $3, right? The second place spot. At minimum, if you put in one lineup. If you put in 2 lineups, right, you're guaranteed to come in at least second and third place. Combined, that's $5, right? So you play $2, you're guaranteed at least $5. If you play 3 lineups, it's the same. You're guaranteed at least $5. Of course, you now have an extra probability of coming in first also, that $5, because you have an extra lineup in there. But as you start adding, think of this as you start adding entries. Right? Let's say there aren't, let's take away the 0-point lineups. Let's say there's overlay. We're not even considering rake at this point. Would you, if it pays, the top 3 pays in a 10-man contest, what would be the difference? If you know no one else is going to enter, what would be the difference between entering 3 lineups and entering 10 lineups? Well, 3 lineups, you're guaranteed first, second, and third place. The other 7 lineups, why you pay? If you paid for all the entries, $10 equals $10. You'd win $10. It would be even. If you entered 9 lineups, right, into this contest that only you exist in, you put in $9 and you get $10 back. That is a profit, right? Oh, I'm going to enter this is 0 out of 10 in the lobby, and it's guaranteed $10. And I know no one else is going to enter. I'm going to enter 9 lineups. That's profitable. It's profitable for you to do so, right? You spend 9 to get 10. But you'd maximize your profit by just playing 3 lineups. It's the 3 spots. It's the most raw money, but the highest ROI would be just playing 1 lineup. You're guaranteed first place. $1 wins you 5, rather than $2 wins you 8, rather than $3 wins you 10. So the lowest ROI out of that bunch is entering 3 lineups, right? Actually entering 10 lineups, then 9 lineups, then 8 lineups, then 7 lineups, then 6 lineups, then 5 lineups, then 4 lineups, then 3 lineups, then 2 lineups, then 1 lineup. From an ROI perspective. But the optimal amount of lineups to enter to maximize profit is 3 lineups. Like that in that exact situation. So now expand this out to any contest, right? Expand this out anywhere to a large field. You have 30,000 entries. If you knew that 29,850 people, right, we're going to put in zeros. You'd play 150 entries. You're guaranteed to cash all. You're guaranteed to come in first through 150th place. Let's say it pays out the top 3,000. Let's just say it pays out, the top, 10% of the field? Let's just say. Pays out the top 6,000, or at 20% of the field. It pays out the top 6,000 in that contest. And you're the only one that could enter lineups into that contest. Everyone else it's all zeros. The highest ROI thing for you to do is to enter just one lineup. You're guaranteed first place, right? But you can, for raw money purposes, just you're making money on any entry. Just at your 6,000th entry, you're just 1.5xing. So if you had the ability to, you'd enter 6,000 lineups, right? Knowing that the other 24,000 are all zeros, are all garbage, are all nothings, right? You'd win the entire prize pool. Every dollar you put in will have a profitable ROI return. Now, your first entry will have the highest ROI. Your second entry will have the second highest ROI. The third, assuming all 6,000 entries are equal. My dog is barking. Sorry. Hold on. Yep, I need to make sure no one's breaking into my house. So I hope you can see the point that I'm trying to make, that at some point, depending on the strength of your opponent's lineups, there's going to be diminishing returns of every individual extra lineup that you put in. Even if individually, each lineup is plus EV against the field. Because you're also competing against your own lineups, right? You can't come in first 150 times. You come in first, second, third, like that's the best you could do. So anytime you add, this is regardless of the strength of the field. Anytime you add another lineup to your portfolio, assuming that you're building plus EV lineups individually, you are reducing the ROI of your portfolio. It's mathematically, inevitable. You can't play 150 lineups and come in 150. You can't even come in first place 150 times. Win that amount of money. You can't win $100,000 with your first entry and $100,000 with your second entry and $100,000 with the third entry. You win $100,000 with your first, $40,000 with your second, and $20,000 with your third. You can do that. So as you add more lineups in, the ROI of your portfolio will go down. That doesn't mean that you play 150 lineups that you won't be profitable. This is where the second debate is, right? There's a difference between this mathematical inevitability and what's pragmatically possible. So, for instance, if I told you that all these 150 lineups are plus EV, and I want you to play the best 50 of them, would you be able to tell which ones are better than others necessarily? They're all probably fairly similar to each other. So, if I could get a higher ROI, maybe not higher raw money, but a higher ROI with only 30 lineups, which 30 lineups would I play? Let's say I'm building lineups, and I'm building lineup 1, lineup 2, lineup 3, lineup 4, yada, 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 yada. I get to the 30th lineup. What's the difference between my 30th lineup and my 31st lineup? Likely nothing. Likely not much at all. Right? And do you have a way of determining between the 30th and 31st lineup which lineup is higher EV over a large sample size? Well, you wouldn't really even, you You wouldn't even know. It wouldn't even be anywhere close to precise without having every other single lineup that was in the contest to begin with, which means you're not going to know until like after the contest is over, right? Ownership numbers are not perfect. Projection numbers are not perfect. But then after the fact, that you go, okay, based on the actual field, this is what my portfolio's ROI is. This is what each individual lineup's ROI is. If try doing that beforehand, like you're simulating what each lineup is against the field and playing the best 150 that you can in some diversified way for variance control. But most likely, you're not going to be able to tell me which one out of the 150 are better than others, right? Or better, or higher ROI than others. You just know that if I put in these 150, my simulated ROI is 8%. Where does that 8% come from individual lineups? You don't know. Now, if you did know, then you'd be like, well, it would be more profitable, right? Higher ROI to just play the 20 best ones, the 20 highest ones. But you're not really going to know that until you see the contest. But then you can't change your lineup. So here you go. You have a conundrum. I can make 7,000 lineups that are plus EV tonight on some large MLB slate. The differences between their EV are not going to be that dramatic. Well, how many of them should I play? Well, I know that if I'm positive, if I'm confident, that any 150 will return me on average 8% or 10% or whatever it is, then just randomly pick 150. But you'll also be profitable, just pick 20 of them. The thing is that that's also less lineups, which means your portfolio ROI should actually go up. Your raw money may end up actually going down because obviously you're playing, if you play 25 lineups instead of 150, that's 6 times less lineups. So you have to wait 6 times as long to hit that dink, realize your equity. But your ROI should be higher because your 20 lineups aren't competing against your other 25 lineups aren't competing against your other 125 lineups either. And there's some inflection point depending on the specific contest and the entries and the opponents that you have, where you're going to see, ROI and actual money. There's going to be a plateauing point where let's say there was no entry limits. Be like, well, 150 is the mandated max by Draftkings and Fanduel. But let's say it was unlimited. So, like, would you enter? It's a 30,000 entry contest. Would you enter 25,000 entries? Probably not. I mean, you're literally entering entries that can't cash. But you can't tell the difference between the 25,000 entries apart. If you entered 25,000 entries, you'd probably be profitable. Right? You just don't know where the profit comes from. And it's going to be a low profit because a third of your entries are going to be wasted. But you're still going to make some money. You'd rather find, it's like, okay, I think the best is to put in 38 lineups. That's where that plateau point starts. And that plateau point is not as affected by the lineups that you build, but the lineups that other people build. So, for instance, in NFL, I think the NFL has a great example. In NFL, I mean, once we throw out like EV realization and variance control, playing 150 lineups, maxing out 150 lineups in the Millie Maker in NFL has a higher ROI than maxing the $150 $9 slant in NFL. Now, why is that? It'd be like, oh, the $9 slant, nice flat payout structure, 2x min cash. This is awesome. This is what we want. Millie Maker is like $1 million first, set of stick knives to 7th, right? What are we talking about? Well, go take a look at what the how many bad lineups there are in the Millie Maker compared to how many bad lineups there are in the slant. The slant is down to like, 30,000 entries, and like more than half of the field are 150 maxers. More than half the field are very good players. And the bottom end of that contest, maybe there's only like 10 to 15% of significantly negative EV lineups. In the Millie Maker, dude, sometimes there are 30 to 35% significantly negative EV lineups. Right? So it's much more advantageous, and it's like, when I say significantly negative EV, think in terms of those zero lineups, because that would be the most negative EV. So if you had a contest where very large field, and you knew that 10% of the contest were throwing in 0-point lineups, injured players, right? Who knows? Reserved entries that they never filled out. And another contest was 35% of the entries look like that. Well, obviously, you'd want to the payouts, like you're starting from a much higher point. Like, you're guaranteed, again, in the first contest with the 10% bad lineups, horrible lineups, you're guaranteed to, in a 100-man contest, you're guaranteed to come in 90th place at minimum. The other contest with 100-man, you're guaranteed to come in 65th. Right? Because 35 of the lineups are zeros, are awful. Which means your portfolio as a whole will have a higher average ROI in a contest where more bad lineups exist compared to a contest that has less bad lineups that exist. And it's not a matter of like, what are the other 150 maxers playing? No, it's more based on how many bad lineups there are, because your portfolio of 150 is likely not going to be that much better or worse from an EV perspective than another 150. So being that that's the case, depending on the contest, you may be able to maximize ROI by playing less entries. What that number is will vary contest to contest, slate to slate, sport to sport, whatever. And I believe that if you simulated it out, that it's very similar to like Daniel in the chat with the Nerdy Tenor, with the like, here are five, like what he does with his programming. Like, here's 5,000 candidate lineups. They're all about equal to each other. Randomly pick 150. Like that type of thing. Well, why doesn't it apply even more micro than that? Of like, well, out of that 150, like, play any 20 and randomly pick 20 out of that 150, competing against everyone else. Like, I'm going to assume that doing that, you'll have a higher ROI. Now, you may need a larger sample size to realize your EV, because you're playing less lineups against yourself. Like, it just seems like fundamentally, like, this is fundamental mathematics. That the only reason why you don't mind the two reasons why you don't mind competing against yourself is, one, there are enough bad lineups that your second lineup, your third lineup, your fourth lineup still generates a profit, even though it's competing against the lineups that you're also putting in. There's enough bad lineups in there. And number two, out of these hundreds of lineups that you can enter, out of the 150, out of the 500, out of the whatever, you have no really discernible way to tell the difference between one lineup or the other. So it's like, well, I don't know what 20 out of the 150 should I play? All I know is that if I play all 150, they're all good. My portfolio as a whole is profitable. Maybe it only gets an 8% ROI, and if I just did 30 lineups, that portfolio will get an 18% ROI. But 8% ROI of 150 may actually be more raw money and lower variance and quicker to realize your EV. But from a just specifically an ROI number, 18%, 36%, minus 2%. The highest ROI has to be one lineup. It has to be. Mathematically, it has to be. The optimal amount of lineups that you should be entering is one lineup that is the highest EV. Now, is that realistic, though? Is that pragmatic? It's not pragmatic for two reasons. One, good luck realizing that expected value. You're playing the Millie Maker with 200,000 entries. It's like, I'm going to play my best lineup. And based on my simulations, if I simulated this out for 1,000,000 years, this would give me the highest ROI. Well, good luck realizing that. Good luck. And number two, you could probably run 500 lineups and get a similar ROI. So it's like, well, what is that best lineup? The difference between the best lineup and my 500th lineup is I don't know. They're all similar. So which one do you play pragmatically? If you know that all 500 are good, that are profitable, putting them all together in a portfolio, it will make your portfolio lower ROI, but it still will be profitable. So I think that's really the two arguments conflated with one another. Because someone was saying it's like, oh, 60 is the best. Remember the rules. Remember the rules of the question rules. If you're asking a question that has a yes or no answer or an exact number, then it's probably a bad question. There's no such thing. You can't just say that 60 is the best, and with no matter what other variables exist. I mean, I just said before, like the Millie Maker, the number is going to be higher than in the $9 slant, or whatever that inflection point number is. It's going to be higher because there's just more worse lineups in there. And then once you get to showdowns, you get to a point where duplication becomes a problem. So it's quite possible that 150ing in showdowns, you're reducing the ROI of your portfolio even more. More and more and more, depending on how much duplication there is in the contest. Now, if you're 115 all unique lineups that actually have a decent win probability, and the rest of the lineups people are duplicating 4,400 times, then you'd want to play 150. But there may be a slate where there aren't that many combos available, and then the condensed ones aren't as 4,400 dupes aren't that. Well, maybe that may be a slate where the optimal amount for maximizing the ROI of your portfolio may be 44 entries. And then you have to, what 44 entries are there? That's the second problem of like, well, I have a ton of lineups that could make this 44. Which ones do I play? Daniel Hutchins says, I believe the effect you were describing competing against yourself is fairly minimal until you get to contests that are relatively small and competitive. An exception. Well, the point I'm making is not that, you play 150 lineups. Like, well, your one lineup is competing against your other 149 lineups, and because there's 30,000 entries in the contest, how much EV are you sucking away from your other 149 lineups? I think it's more the fact of what's you're paying $10, $15 an entry over and over and over again. If you were able to determine what your best 25 out of the 150 are, you would get a higher ROI on those 25 lineups than you would on the other 125 lineups. So why not play just the 25 lineups? And of course, that's a slippery slope to going like, why don't you just play your first lineup? That's why the argument here is not what's pragmatic. Like people are talking like in this conversation, like the debate was, some people were debating it like, well, how do you know the difference between your 50th best lineup and your 51st best lineup? I'm like, no, I agree with you. That people put in 150 because it's still profitable as a portfolio, and they don't have to worry about that. But from a theoretical sense, wouldn't you just? It would be the highest ROI to play your best lineup, and that's it. You're not spending any more money, other than the highest. It's very similar to picture sports betting. Wow, there's 20 bets today that are advantageous, that are plus EV. Some bets are much higher EV. Some bets are very small EV. If you just said I'm going to bet the same amount on all 20 bets. I'm going to bet $50 on all of them. Rather than using some Kelly mindset, at least, if not, typing it in and doing a formula, the highest EV bets you'd be betting $150, and the lowest EV you'd be betting $20, right? That would maximize your ROI. But if you just bet the same on everything, you'd still be profitable, just not as profitable. So really, that's what it comes down to. Like, well, why do they play 150 lineups? It's because there's enough bad lineups in the contest, first off. Secondly, they could build hundreds, if not thousands, of plus EV lineups, and they're just playing 150. They're getting a return on the entire portfolio regardless. It may not be the highest return, but they're pretty much getting a return. And they don't have to worry about which ones are the better bets, right? 20 bets. Which one is higher EV? You're just like, nope. I just know these 20 bets are plus EV. I don't know how much more higher ROI they are, so I'm just going to bet the same on all of them. You know what that person doesn't have to worry about? Which ones are better than others? And they still profit. So I view it the same way. Right, Daniel just says the raw number, right? You'd make more money, but you have less ROI. But a lot of this conversation, especially looking at post-contest, post-lock sims, is that it's showing you ROI numbers. And you're going, well, the ROI of all of this, whatever, is low. Like, look at this guy. This guy put in 3 lineups, and his lineups were, here's this lineup that's 48% ROI. Here's this lineup that's 22% ROI. Here's this lineup that's 34% ROI. And here's this 150 that has a 6% ROI. Like, why aren't I just putting in 3 lineups? Like, those 3 specific lineups, sure. On average, can you make them probably not. You probably can't make them every slate. Those 3 specific lineups. Those 3 lineups, it's very similar, could be in your 150, and they show that they have those ROIs after the fact. But before the fact, you look at all 150, and you may have the differences between them may be minimal. So how do you decide at that point? You won't know until you see the actual field. Dude, that's the number one thing I look at is ownership after lock. This past slate with Trevor Peak on MMA, right? I had him projected at like 36% owned. And I played him in like 22% of my lineups. Right? And in the lineups that it made sense to play a fairly chalky 36% owned 8K fighter. When Luck hit, he was 49% owned. 49%. Had I known that, I would have played less. I wouldn't have had 22% of them. I would have had like 10% of them. And the lineups that I played him in would need to have even more significant leverage in there. So those lineups are much less profitable with him than I thought they were because they're a little too high owned now. A little. And then, obviously, like his opponent, I had more Mariscal, but I would have had even more. And in those lineups, actually, maybe I could have made chalkier, right? Those are the types of things of like, well, had I known all this information, I could make a 50 line, because I played 50 lineups. I could make a 50 lineup set that is higher ROI. But at the time, if we go in by projections, this is the information that I have. But now that I see the actual field, it's like, oh, my lineup set that I could make based on actual ownership could be much higher ROI, those 50 lineups, than what I did make. But I believe I could predict the field that I still want to make 50 lineups. But there are some slates like this 12 fight slate coming up. It's quite possible. We get 11 fights, 10 fights, and I go, the duplication is so ridiculous. And the spreads of the fights are so wide. I go, I'm playing 20 lineups today. There are some slates where I look and I go, wow, there's a lot more combinations that are available. There's 1 or 2 fighters that are egregiously over-owned, right? So I think the line people are going to be building way too chalk lineups, way too duplicated lineups. I'm like, okay, those slates, maybe I'm playing 100 lineups. There's more positive. There's much higher EV lineups available because of what the field is doing. So that's why you can't just come in, like this guy over here and go, well, I think the number is 60. Like there's no definitive correct answer that applies to anything, everything and anything. But I believe there is an inflection point. Brian, if you watch or listen to Lowell's, him and Pete Overzet, he said multiple times over the past 2 years that 150 may not be the optimal number of entries. That he's entering 150. He goes 150, 150, 150, 150, 150, multiple sites or whatever. It's like he feels that depending on the contest, depending on the field, the strength and everything like that, maybe 150 isn't the best. That doesn't mean it's not profitable. It just means it's not optimal. And what number is that? He doesn't know. But I think this also tails back to people that say, oh, if you can't max enter, don't bother playing it. Like that is unequivocally false. A plus EV lineup is a plus EV lineup. It doesn't matter. Well, these guys get to play 150. So, yeah, and they're also paying 150 times more. Like, proportionally, it's the same. They have 150 more chances to win. Yeah, because they paid 150 times more. Like, that. You paid 15, they paid, you paid 10, they paid 1,500. They need to win 150 times more than you do. You have one entry. Okay. If you got any questions about any of this, any thoughts on the matter, two things. One, send in your questions at theoryofdfs.com. You can email in. I know that the rest of this week we got Grinders Live and MMA. So, and then Mondays with McCool and whatever. So we won't get to some questions until the middle of next week, but send them in. So I always have stuff in the queue. Questions at theoryofdfs.com. And maybe we could discuss this topic in general more on in my Blenders Game Theory channel in the RotoGrinders Premium Discord. Today we're doing a group coaching call, group conversation via Zoom. That's at 4 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to join in on that, sign up for RotoGrinders. Sign up for RotoGrinders Premium. Click on the link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. Get everything. The combo premium, you get everything. You get lineup HQ, you get all the projections, all the content, all the articles, all the research tools, all the everything. For all the sports, everything all across the board. Do whatever you want, right? NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, NFL is coming around, right? All preseason stuff, I guess. I mean, we got everything. WNBA, I think we got WNBA. I believe. I don't play WNBA, but I believe we have WNBA projections. Get that also. So join us. Join the Discord. I have my own channel in there. If you want to talk to me anytime, I'm in there. That's the best place to get in touch with me when it comes to DFS, right? For discussion. Not necessarily my DMs on Twitter or anything, but if you just join that channel, and there's other people there that will discuss it also. We have conversations in there all the time. So you can post your questions in there. Join us. I'll post a link in that channel. And with the alert, we have a little alert system you could sign up for, like 5 minutes before we go. It'll be about an hour or so on Zoom. So join us today. Join us. We have a nice conversation. We typically have intellectual conversations via Zoom in real time there, rather than we do. I mean, we do in this chat also, right? Sometimes we get some troll people in there. Sometimes we do. Right? I don't mind the trolls as long as they hit the thumbs, right? As long as they hit the thumbs, so hit that. Hit the like button on your way out the door. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live on the channel, right? Obviously, before this show, we got Will, the pick 'em picks, right? The take 'em, pick 'em, leave 'em, take 'em, and pick 'em, right? You got Will before here. Then you got Grant on the Scores and Odds channel. You got that. You got some FanDuel strategy videos for certain days on the channel. You got obviously Grinders Live, obviously Crunch Time. You got golf stuff. You got everything. So if you want to know when we have the live shows, typically a couple of times a day, hit that notification bell. And so because you'll see me tomorrow. Tomorrow I get to sleep. I get to sleep a little later. a little later, right? Instead of being up for an 11 o'clock show, I got to be up for a 12:30 in the afternoon show. So I'll be on with Dean talking about tomorrow's slate. And then I'll be back here answering all your DFS strategy questions like I normally do. Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.